Victory is sweet in Arlington, Texas, as the Dallas Cowboys are undefeated in the last 21 days. Welcome back to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. I am your host, Ray Nickens, the speaker of objectivity, joined today, as routine, my co host.
Owen DeChico.
And we are flying high this Tuesday because the Cowboys have passed Dak's preseason with flying colors and sit at 3-1 after a victory over the Panthers. There were endless storylines during this game, and we are both very excited to get into them. In this episode, we all wait, I lost my spot. Endless storyline during this game. We are very excited. Nope, I was right. In this episode, we also have to talk about Trayvon Diggs and his dominance and the genius of Kellen Moore in key moments. That and more. But first, let's move into Escape from Reality. Right after Owen lets us into a little bit of insight to the Cowboys injury tent. Take it away.
So for the past 2 weeks, linebacker Keanu Neal and defensive end Bradley and I have not played due to COVID. But according to the Cowboys, they both should be playing, which is great because it allows them to move Micah Parsons around and not have to have him stay at the end or linebacker due to injuries, not having enough depth, which is great. So, and we all know that Neal the first few weeks had really big games, and Anai had some flashes. So hopefully they will be able to continue, and the defense is only going to get healthier. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do, given the quote unquote success that they've had to start off the year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the break from reality. So Ray, do you want to get us going?
Yeah. So if this is your first time listening, first of all, welcome. Thanks for spending some time with us. But Escape from Reality is just where we don't talk about the Dallas Cowboys and talk about three things that stood out in the NFL this week. So I will get us started. So the first thing I have is the Patriots defense and Mac Jones. So as everyone knew, we touched on it a little bit in last episode that did not actually make it on Spotify. That's a completely different story for probably not another time. But the Patriots played the Bucks. Tom Brady's homecoming. The emotions were high for both sides. Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady. All of that drama. But if you just look at it from the game standpoint, the Patriots defense looked really, really impressive against Tom Brady and the Bucks. Whether that had to do a lot with the weather, if Bill Belichick flipped on Foxborough the Foxborough rain and just opened the floodgates and the rain just started pouring down or whatever, it looked really impressive. They had completely different looks every single possession, every play, every drive. Tom Brady was getting blitzes from one look and then drop back, and then the linebackers were dropping back from that same look. They had multiple DBs on the field every play. It was just Bill Belichick was basically throwing the kitchen sink at Tom Brady. And what was really impressive was I'm sure he saw every single one of these looks for the 20 years that he was in New England. But the fact that Bill was able to disguise a bunch of stuff, throw a bunch of stuff at him every play, and confuse him, make him look human, was really impressive, especially with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin still there. I know they didn't have Gronkowski, and that was a big factor, but they still have plenty of weapons in Tampa Bay to not really miss Gronk in the passing game. So I thought the Patriots defense looked really impressive and should be a thing to look at moving on in this season. Another thing that impressed me about that game was Mac Jones. I thought he outplayed Tom Brady the entire game. He at one point had completed 20 passes in a row. That was really impressive. I know the Bucs defense is not very great, but as a rookie, playing against the guy you replaced, the guy who left and won a Super Bowl, all that pressure mounting on you, he went out and performed well. And really, I was shocked that they didn't let him go for it, especially because the play before, if that ball had not been batted down, he probably would have gotten the first down and a lot more yards. So I was kind of shocked that they kicked the field goal. But, I mean, that's why I'm the coach, I guess. But anyway, I was just really impressed with the Patriots defense and also Mac Jones. Second thing, Zach Wilson's come from behind victory. The supermodel quarterback got his first win as a NFL football quarterback for the New York Jets. It came against the Tennessee Titans, who, even without Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, they still had that beast Derrick Henry, who has caused a lot of fantasy owners a lot of pain who have been facing him in the last few years. But at the end of the game, Zach Wilson basically showed us why he deserved to be that number 2 overall pick, leading them on that game-winning drive in overtime, and also the come from behind, the 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter to take the lead over the Tennessee Titans. I know the Tennessee Titans got a little bit bailed out and getting into overtime with some pass interference called that should have been called or should have been called. I didn't really see the play. I just was able to tune in when they had it on after the Pittsburgh game. After the Houston game, I believe, is when they started airing it. But I was really impressed with how he looked in overtime. He looked good. He looked calm, cool, collected, like he should be there. So I was really impressed with him. And then finally, the Cardinals blowout win versus the Rams. I did not see that coming. I'm sure nobody saw that coming. But Kyler Murray and D Hop, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, all those boys in Atlanta on offense, and then JJ Watt, Chandler Jones, Buda Baker, Isaiah Simmons on defense. They're a force in the NFC, and I think they really put everyone on notice, especially after the Rams blew out Tampa to go into LA and blow out the Rams. It just really shows that the NFC is going to be a really challenging conference to get first place in. So it's really going to be crucial for the team who does end up in first place. They're going to have a slimmer advantage than usual home field in the postseason. So it just shows how strong the NFC is, and the NFC should be the conference to beat come Super Bowl time. But those are my 3 things. So Owen, what do you have?
So a lot of the good games this past Sunday were when I was on work, so that was a shame. But for the games that I did get to see, as Ray said, the Jets win. And I didn't any game where you see Derrick Henry runs for 157 yards, I would expect that to be a blowout. But that was the exact opposite of what happened. You and I may have different views on the overtime, though. I think that they could have definitely scored a touchdown. And that last play where Zach Wilson had it rolled out on third down, I think it was, if that was like a HB dive or something like that, that was a for sure touchdown. But it was definitely good to see them win a game, and hopefully it will cause them to win other games down in the future, down the line, and the Jets can retake New York from the Giants and no longer live in the shadows. My second one that I want to talk about was Philadelphia putting up 30 points against the Chiefs. Now, I know the Chiefs' defense is not the best defense, but if the Philly was able to only lose by 12, I think that allows other teams to have some hope, because Philly is not a great team by any stretch of the imagination. And unless those were a bunch of just touchdowns at the end of the game and they were empty calories, as people would say, then that was a pretty good for Philadelphia, a quote unquote a moral victory. And the last one where Ray and I watched last night, the down go the Raiders. That was very, very good to see them, the Raiders and the Chargers, go back and forth. And Derek Carr, for the first time this season, looked human. The last interception to seal the game, I guess, late in the fourth quarter, I don't know what he saw, but the safety was with him the whole entire time, and he just took that ball away from Darren Waller. And I think everyone knows that when Hard Knocks aired a few years ago, Gruden was not the biggest fan of Carr, and I don't think that game helps at all. And hopefully Carr will be able to show the flashes that he has the past few games. But if not, if he continues to play like this, I don't know if Gruden will have the same patience that he has in past years. Because when the Raiders, I guess, signed or brought in Gruden and Mayock, the thought that the team was going to be good in a few years, and not great off the bat, but that I don't think they've lived up to the hype, especially with, even though their division's really good, the Chiefs were the only team that was in their way, and now the Chargers are heating up, and I don't know if and obviously the Raiders are nowhere near as good as the Chargers, so hopefully Gruden and Mayock will be able to put it together, but who knows? But those are my three. Hopefully, there were a bunch of other games that were good, but those are my three in particular.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up Derek Carr and the John Gruden controversy. I think that if the Raiders continue along this path of mediocrity, that one of them is going to have to go, and it's going to either be John Gruden or Derek Carr. And I feel like since Derek Carr doesn't really have that big of a contract, then they're probably going to ship him off because they invested in John Gruden long term, and he has shown flashes of brilliance as a head coach and flashes of not very brilliant things. But I think John Gruden has shown that he is a competent head coach, and I think that moving on from Derek Carr is a lot easier to do than to move on from John Gruden and try Derek Carr with another head coach. Also, I just want to point out really quickly some of the hits that the Jets defensive line and linebackers put on Derrick Henry at the end of the game were baffling and just really impressive because it's very hard to tackle Derrick Henry in itself. And I don't even know who that guy was, but he licked Derrick Henry 2 times in a row, just put him right on his back. And I was shocked. I'm like, how is that even possible? Like I couldn't wrap my brain around how he could make just make Derrick Henry go down like that. And I'm sure Derrick Henry was shocked too. But it just shows that, Saleh has his team fighting every game. Defense is fighting hard, and they want to win. They don't want to lose games. So the fact that they were still, investing enough to make those good form tackles is really good to see. And I think the Jets do have a brighter future than the Giants at this point, which is not really hard to do considering the Giants are also a stellar team. But also, just before we get into the main event of this show, I just want to congratulate you, Owen, for getting 11 out of your 14 picks correctly. I got 10 out of 5. I lost week 4, unfortunately. So, no, I'm sorry, 12 and 3. 12 out of your 15 picks correctly. I did not get 12 out of my 15 picks correctly. So I'm going to have to bounce back next week. But congrats on winning week 1 of week predictions.
Thank you. We will have to keep this going. It is good
Yes.
to hear my name winning, and hopefully it'll happen for the next few weeks. It is good to win something because my fantasy leagues are horrendous. So Owen and winning is a good thing to hear.
Yes, especially with the new his recent experience in Madden. That's also been added to the list of pain. But anyway, just moving on back into the main topic of this podcast / live stream, Dallas Cowboys. So Cowboys, they found themselves in a dogfight in the first half, but really just pulled away and won fairly easily in spite of the final score being 36-28. Dak had another game managing day, completing about 230 yards, 4 touchdowns. Zeke ran for 140, by far his most in a very long time. That was great to see. And so really just, Owen, I'm curious to hear what you thought about the game and what were your takeaways, and just like kind of just start there and move on as we go.
Yeah, so I think that this game is definitely a tale of two different halves and two different teams on both sides. I think that the Panthers came in very hot and the Cowboys looked not like the Cowboys. And in the second half, the Panthers looked horrendous and the Cowboys looked like they were on top. So it was very interesting because I think in years past, or even in years past, I don't think that if Jason Garrett is coaching this team, or if there's a different quarterback, or if Lenahan's the offensive coordinator, I don't think they win this game at all. I'm sure Ray has seen this too many times of the Cowboys just looking defeated and not playing well, and they end up getting shellacked. So it was good to see them come back. But I think that the biggest issue for the biggest reason for that happening was Sam Darnold. He came out and looked really good. The Cowboys had no answer for him running the ball, and I don't know if they didn't think to put a spy on him or what, but they did not look ready to see Sam Darnold use his legs. And then in the second half, when the defensive line started getting some pressure, he was just throwing up ducks. And who else but Trayvon Diggs but to catch them, which I thought was another great game for Trayvon. But I think that'll be a topic for a little bit later. Dak did not look great in the first half, but he did Dak, and he brought it back at the end. And he, as Ray said, game manager. I like this style of Cowboy play way more than anything in the past few years. I was hesitant to say this last week, but I feel like this season has shades of 2016 written over it a little bit. But I think this team is obviously better than that. But if going back to 2016, I know I talk about this season a little bit too much, but this will be the last time I'm bringing up this episode. Obviously, they lose to the Giants week 1, and the Cowboys lost week 1, and then and then week 2 they played Washington, and we had Barry Churchill that game with an end zone interception, and they kept on winning and winning until they had to play the Giants. Now, I don't think they're going to lose I don't think they're going to have those type of woes against the Giants this year, but it's good to see this team under a coach that has gotten his fair share of ridicule for his issues in game come together and string along a few victories. When Ray, in the beginning of week 1, when we first started episode 1 of this podcast, I don't think he would have expected anything like this to happen. Ray was talking about 1-3 in the first 4 games, or maybe even 0-4, depending on. I'll have to go back and listen. And there are definitely better teams in the NFL, but I don't think there are too many. And going back to this particular game, Chuba Hubbard, he had 13 carries for 57 yards, and he looked great in the first half. And then I guess the defensive line was just they looked a lot better against Hubbard. And I thought in the beginning, I was like, yeah, Ray is gonna really make me get upset or he's gonna really make me eat my words for saying that the Cowboys' run defense was back. But at the end, they pulled away with the victory, and I think they scored multiple touchdowns in the span of 8 minutes, which is insane. And it was a thing of beauty, especially to see Zeke have his longest rush of 47 since 2016, which was really crazy. And he looked. I haven't seen that type of fire in him since 2016. And the rookies keep on doing well. Oso Odigizua and Parsons are killing it. And hopefully they can keep on winning as the defense gets healthier. But those were my takes. There's a bunch of other stuff that I could talk about, but I'll let you get right into it.
Yeah, so I have a lot of the same feelings that you do about the game. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys, it didn't really, after sitting on it and thinking, it didn't really seem like much changed from them from both halves. I think what the difference was in this game, it really came down to one sequence, or actually 2 sequences. But the first sequence was where they had him on second down. I think they either sacked Darnold or they had an incomplete pass, and there's a holding penalty on the Panthers. And it was either you take the penalty and they move back second 22, or you decline it and third and 12. And Mike, he chose to decline the penalty. It went to third and 12. Sam Darnold ultimately converted. I think he found DJ Moore on that specific play for a first down. and the Panthers ended up driving down the field and scoring. So that I believe put them up 14-7, I think, at that point. So just things like that. If they had just declined that, not declined, accepted that penalty, they probably would have stopped them, and the Panthers would have punted, and that takes off 7 points off the board. So that was just kind of just one of those small things. And then in the second sequence was actually two sequences of fumbles. The first fumble, Schultz was obviously down. It wasn't a fumble. Very next play, catches the ball, gets absolutely blasted by Brian Burns. Obvious fumble. Panthers have the ball inside the Cowboys 20. Chance to go up 21-7, but they rule it a he was down by,
With
I
the
guess,
whistle, blown whistle.
blown by the whistle. They had stopped his progress, down by no forward progress. It was a horrible call. It was a very lucky call, and honestly a turning point in that game. That was the key turning point in the football game right there. Because if the Panthers get the ball and score on that possession, I think we're here talking about a completely different outcome. But since they didn't, and the Cowboys kept the ball, they ended up driving down the field and scoring a touchdown, and ultimately they went up four.
It's 14-13.
They were down
The Cowboys
14-13 because they didn't get the 2-point conversion, which was called a 2-point conversion, but then ruled he was down. Very, very close call on that 2-point conversion. I thought he looked down in real time, but it was still really, really close to call. I ended up tweeting, yeah, I was. They changed it in review, blah blah blah. But so I think those two plays, it just kind of. I think the Cowboys they played well the entire game. Zeke looked great the entire game. They kept him going, and it really was a different Zeke. Even the Zeke last week did not look like this Zeke. This Zeke looked like the Zeke that we need to if we're going to go far in this season. But and then just really the defense, they just kind of, like you said, they were getting pressure on Darnold early on, but it just seemed like it wasn't really, they were just kind of getting unlucky. Like they had him wrapped up and he kind of mirrored Dak the possession before where he got it out to a receiver and the receiver got like 20 or 30 yards. And then the run by Darnold, just all those things. It was just kind of a little bit unlucky. They weren't getting there, but then the second half, they just started to get there. And yeah, so I really think the Cowboys played well the entire game. They just had one bad break and then they had a really good lucky break. And just both of those kind of got us to the outcome that we are today. But anyway, now back to just what I think about the overall team. I think the Dallas Cowboys identity on offense is back. And that identity is what we really first saw in the 90s, but we weren't born yet, so we wouldn't know. But the Cowboys fans of the 1990s and the 1970s with Dorsett and Emmitt Smith, they know that those teams, they had giants on the offensive line, and they had a great running back, and they just pounded the football, and then they'd hit you with Michael Irvin, Alvin Harper, or Drew Pearson, and Bob Hayes. If you don't know who Bob Hayes is, was the 1960s, 70s version of Tyreek Hill. But anyway, so I think it's really hard for a defense to stop the Dallas Cowboys because of how talented they are on the offense at receiver if the Cowboys are running the football well. And that's just Zeke, pounding you inside and then Pollard gashing you after Zeke's tired and the defensive line is tired. Then the defense, they drop the safety down. All of a sudden, Cooper and CD and Dalton Schultz are all wide open down the field. So it's really hard to stop that offense. And especially with the defense, they're playing hard. They're flying for the ball, getting turnovers. And Parsons, he's becoming a real leader on this defense. I noticed while I was watching it live, Parsons, he kind of gave a little tip to one of the defense linemen, like, hey, move over. Like, we're in a spread package. You need to move over. And ultimately, I don't remember if that was successful in him telling him that, but I mean, I'm sure it was the right thing to do, and the dude wasn't just doing it. So I like that he's proven to be a leader in the locker room to be able to to do that in that game situation. But yeah, I really just think that this model of winning is is can continue because there's no really lucky breaks. It seems like when they play this way. I mean, it keeps the defense fresh. The defensive that the our opponent's defense is always guessing, and if the Cowboys if they don't turn the football over, it's really hard to beat them just because they have so many different ways to beat you, and they're really good at all of them. So, I mean, I was ultimately really impressed with what I saw. Hubbard having 11, I think you said 13 carries for 57 yards. I think they ran 80% of those carries in the first half, depending from the second half. So I think once the Cowboys jumped out to that early lead and forced those quick third and outs, it really just ended that any chance of the Carolina Panthers still establishing that running game. So I guess the only real red flag, other than one other thing that I'll touch on a little bit later, is the fact that the defensive line was showing some flashes of last year, being a little bit vulnerable. But I mean, if the Cowboys can get pressure on the quarterback and get him in second and third and longs on defense, that shouldn't really be an issue. So yeah, I was really impressed. I liked what I saw. I'm glad the Cowboys passed the Dak Prescott preseason, and now they get to just kind of move on and try and get a good spot in the postseason. Do you think they have a long way to go to match up with teams like the Cardinals and the Rams and the Buccaneers? But I
Um,
think they're well on their way.
yeah, definitely. I don't. I think that if the Cowboys were 2 to 4 plays away, if things go differently on 2 to 4 plays, then if the rest of the season goes well, then they're 4-0, and this team is talked about in a much different way. I think that the Cardinals, they have a really good defense, but in my opinion, the only reason why people are talking about Kyler is because week 2 or week 3 he had that one throw where he was running all over the place, and then he found a guy, and people were like, "Yeah, this is like the next best quarterback," and he's. I think the most memorable play of his career is the Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins, and that was all DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler, I he is what he is. He's a shorter, probably worse thrower of the football than Russell Wilson. Because they would you agree with that? They're kind of like the same. Russell's just better than Kyler at everything. But Kyler and Dak are probably the most similar to Russell, but obviously they're both worse of a quarterback than he is.
I think a better comparison to Kyler would be Lamar Jackson. Just say Kyler Murray is a worse runner of the football than Lamar Jackson is, but he's a way better passer.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. The Rams, they will continue to win more games. The Buccaneers, I have no idea what's going to happen there because if they need to figure some things out because I don't think if they blew out the Patriots, then okay, they look pretty good. But that game, you can blame it on the weather and you can blame it on a bunch of other things, but they didn't look great. And hopefully their secondary will get healthier, but it didn't look the best. And Dallas is definitely a top 5 team in the NFC. But if, in my opinion at least, and hopefully they can continue on their winning ways, because it's good to not have to see NFL meme pages talking about like, are you still them boys? It's good to not get flooded with Cowboys hate. But talking about the Cowboys game, Dak now has 21 games with 3 or more passing touchdowns, and Romo has 40, so he is 19 away. So hopefully he can pass Romo because that is something that I can use against you when talking about Romo. And for
You,
Diggs,
you know what I'd say to combat that?
what?
it's a different era of football. And also, I would love to see Romo with CD Lamb and Amari Cooper
Well, Dak may not have more of
and
these
Zeke.
three touchdown, of course. Dak may not have any more of these three or more touchdown games. I feel like it's Zeke's team again, and Dak is definitely the leader of the team. But this if they want to win, this team goes as far as Zeke takes them.
Yeah,
But
I think what people don't really understand, or I guess the Dak Prescott fanboys, not saying Owen is a fanboy, but and this is not directed at Owen necessarily. I think what they don't understand when people like me address like say Dak is not like can't carry the football team by himself. It's really just like me saying the Cowboys are just not built to win like the Chiefs are built to win. Like the Chiefs, they have Mahomes who can throw it 1,000 yards in the air, and then they have Tyreek Hill who can run past you and catch the ball 80 yards down the field, and then they have a situational tight end Travis Kelsey, who's basically a wide receiver, but is a is a great tight end, and they can just score all over you. It's impossible to stop them on offense, really. So they're built to win shootouts. Cowboys, they're not really built to win shootouts. They don't really have that one player who can beat you, like take the top off you. CD, I think, could be that player in the future, but he's not that anymore, or not that yet. And then Amari Cooper is just kind of he's a great route runner, but he's not a deep threat. He did catch a deep ball though, but
a
he's
great
not that
throw.
Tyreek. He's not that Tyreek deep threat. So the Cowboys, but what they're best at is running the football on you, because if they run the football on you, you can't stop their pass, because they can beat you at wide receiver, tight end, running back out of the backfield. You can't stop the Dallas Cowboys if you're playing for the run. So, and that just shows because the Cowboys, they're undefeated with Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott. And that's just because it's impossible to stop the Dallas Cowboys when they're running the football well, because you can't stop their pass. And that's a great formula to have. So, like, really, the only way to beat the Cowboys is to get ahead early. And that's what happened in 2019, some parts of 2018. They got ahead early and they couldn't come back because they don't have the Chiefs offense. So it's really not a knock on Dak when I'm saying he's not going to beat you by himself, or he's not like good enough to win shootouts. I mean, he is, but he's not good enough to do it routinely like a Mahomes, because he doesn't have that type of offense to do it in. So it really just depends on what offense your quarterback is playing in, and how you win. So that's why I'm always preaching run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, control the clock, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah.
I think every quarterback needs a running back because, as we've seen the last few weeks with the Chiefs, if their running back was competent and didn't fumble the ball, they would have a much better record. So I
Who?
don't think that it's possible
Chiefs?
for who, yeah, because Edwards
Yeah,
fumbled
yeah,
in
yeah,
multiple different
exactly.
games and blew the
Exactly.
game.
Exactly.
So Mahomes doesn't need a running back to prosper, but every quarterback needs to be able to lean on. Especially younger quarterbacks need running backs to lean on. But hopefully Mahomes can turn it around, and their running backs can get themselves situated.
Yeah, I
But
mean, and that's why the Chiefs barely run the football.
yeah,
They're air raid, chuck it to Tyreek Hill, he's gonna catch it,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, I it would be nice to be Patrick Mahomes, because you just get to chuck it deep to Tyreek Hill. It makes football really easy.
it does.
But yeah,
It does.
so I really want to talk about Trayvon Diggs,
It's a
because
good
that
thing to
man
talk
is
about.
he's basically um right now he's constructing his private island that nobody that anyone can show up to, but they're not going to have fun. So basically, yeah, it's crazy what he's doing.
It's a torture island.
Yeah, it's basically you go there because it's a pyramid scheme. That's a great way to call it. You go there because you're expecting to prosper, but then you end up losing it all and getting shut down and getting looked like a complete idiot.
Buffoon.
Because I mean, Sam Darnold, one of those throws, I just couldn't comprehend why he threw the ball there. But I mean, Diggs is just a beast. He's really last year he was he was a gambler, got burned a ton. But I really feel like he's now a little bit. I mean, being the second year corner, you learn more. You learn what not to do and what to do. And with his ball skills, he's becoming a corner that you don't throw to. And we'll see if his success continues when they face um, quarterbacks like, gosh, who else did they play?
Aaron Rodgers, sorry, not Aaron Rodgers. Mahomes. Who else
Yeah,
do they play?
Mahomes. When they play, I guess I could say Kirk Cousins because he's an experienced quarterback. He's had a decent year. Gosh, who do they play? I feel they don't play many like really experienced quarterbacks this season. I
Let
guess
me see.
Matt
I'm gonna pull
Ryan.
it up right now.
You could say they play Matt Ryan.
Kyler Murray, Winston, but we'll see what happens with Winston
Winston will probably
when
throw him 3.
and then Derek Carr. Yeah, there's not really a lot of good. The next great quarterback they play. Do you consider Kirk Cousins to be a great quarterback?
I consider him to be a very serviceable quarterback.
Okay, well they don't play a great quarterback for until October 31st, because next week are the Giants and the following is Mac Jones, and then after that they don't play a great quarterback until November 21st.
Yeah,
So
so really we might see a plus 10 interception season for Trayvon Diggs this year, which would be quite the accomplishment. I'm not sure how many corners have had 10 plus interceptions in a year. It's probably Darrell Revis, and Earl Thomas probably did it, but he was a safety. Maybe Deion Sanders. I don't know, but I'm sure Trayvon Diggs will be in a very small sample size of
Marcus
corners if he were
Peters
to do
had
that.
upward. He had like 8 to 10, I think, his rookie or sophomore year. So he had a lot.
Yeah. So basically, what Trayvon Diggs is doing is really special, and I did not think he was going to get a turnover this game just because it's really hard to continue to do that. But he got 2, and he's really carrying the Cowboys defense by himself because he's creating pretty much 80% of their turnovers, and he's making all the great plays in the secondary. He's really the only secondary player at corner you can rely on this team. I mean, as soon as he went out, the floodgates open, and whether or not you want to put that to, them just laying off or whatnot, but he went out of the game, and all of a sudden Sam Darnold looked like he did in the first half and just was going up and down the field, and I thought it was really comical. Anthony Brown, he knocks a pass away. No, sir, shakes his finger. 2 plays later, gets torched, and they score a touchdown. And I was just like, where's Trayvon Diggs? Get him back on the field. I mean, apparently his back was tightening up. They said it was player management during the game, and then it became he had back spasms. So if that was a cover up, great cover up. But I'm sure if the Cowboys did not get that conversion, he would have been back on the field for that final drive. I don't see any scenario where he's not. And if he was not and the Cowboys ended up losing, I would just add that to my list of fireable offenses that Mike McCarthy has had in these first 4 games, which is getting closer to 8, let's just say. But Trayvon Diggs, he's now the third Cowboy that I follow on Instagram. There are very few quarter players that I follow. Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, and now Trayvon Diggs. So if you want to earn my respect, you got to get me to follow you on Instagram. So,
Yes. Speaking.
yeah.
Did you want to talk about Diggs more, or can I?
No, just I may or may not get a Diggs jersey. We'll see.
I can't get a Diggs jersey, so I will just look at yours and be happy. So yesterday or Sunday, when Sam Darnold targeted Diggs, he was 2 for 7 for 34 yards and 2 interceptions. And in the past 4 games, when quarterbacks target Diggs, or when Diggs is the nearest defender, they are 11 for 25 for 5 interceptions. That is pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, that's basically Revis Island.
Yeah,
If you
and
think
he
about it.
is This is true. Well, yeah, it's an island. I wouldn't say Revis just yet,
Well,
but he is
it's
one.
yeah, it's the numbers are if he keeps this up, he could build his own island. Or he's building his own island, but he could upgrade his island
It's under
to
construction.
top tier. Yeah.
He is Diggs is one of 6 corners in the Super Bowl era with 8 picks through his first 16 games. And if he knew how to catch the ball, jokingly knew how to catch the ball last year, he could have 14 maybe because he dropped like 6 of them, which is crazy. But yeah, he the first interception was just Darnold didn't see him. Just did not see him at all. It was zone coverage. He was back and just didn't see him at all. But that second interception, that was to jump over DJ Moore, like not jump over, but to get in front of him and take that ball away from him because DJ Moore is a big guy. I think
Hmm.
he went to Maryland, maybe. He's a big guy, and to get that ball away from him was I thought they were gonna rule it a catch at first, but thankfully they didn't. And it was great. Also, a thing that had nothing to do with Trayvon. As soon as he catches them, the whole team goes crazy, and I don't think that it just shows how close this team is and how they play for each other. And there's no one selfish on this team. Now, we could jokingly say Jalen, but I think he knows his role. I don't think that there's been a team in recent years that have been this close. I guess, and as much hate as Mike gets, he deserves some credit for first winning 6 games with that horrendous team last year, and now exceeding expectations. And even though he's made a lot of bad decisions, just having all of his players be ready, because I'm sure there are people on the defensive line who outside of Cowboys fans they've never heard of before. I don't think anyone has heard of Oso Idigizua. He was a rookie, but I no he wasn't anyone's top defensive tackle, and just to see him do what he's doing is great, and to see him have 7 quarterback hits through the first 4 games of the season, that's 3 more quarterback hits than any Cowboys defensive tackle had in 2020. So he's already better than all of the bad D tackles last year, which is awesome. And to see guys that were definitely not getting number 1 reps in the offseason and to see them succeed is great to see. And brownie points for both Dan Quinn and for Mike McCarthy for getting his team ready. So it's
Yeah.
Mike doesn't deserve a lot of credit, but I think he deserves a lot of praise for that.
Uh, yeah. I'm very I'm very nervous to congratulate Mike McCarthy a lot, just because I don't know. I will say good job for getting, 3-1 is great. And really the most negative thing I could say about this year is just say that the Chargers that we saw the last 2 weeks were not the Chargers that we played. Like those Chargers seemed a lot more disciplined the last few weeks, and I think that if they'd played like they did the last 2 weeks, they probably would have beat us. But that's all I have, and 2-2 is a lot better than 0-4, which is what I was saying sometimes in 2 months ago. And I think that now that they've gotten through this first 4 game stretch, they have a lot of winnable games coming up and can really set themselves up for success and fight for that first round bye. I mean, even I don't even know if they want the first round bye because they have a habit of not performing well after a bye. But even to win the division and get that home field advantage in the postseason is a opportunity that is a lot more achievable at this point, especially if they continue to play this way. So I just need Mike McCarthy to clean up some of those mental errors, especially in those mojo moments that he was talking about in training camp in those episodes. It seems like whenever there's a mojo moment, he just loses his mind and does the exact opposite of what he should do. So I guess Mike McCarthy, you need to improve in your own mojo moments, and then we will then discuss how I was wrong about you as the head coach. But as of right now, good job. Way to be 3-1.
Hopefully, they don't play the Packers in the first playoff game if they don't have to play one of the wild card teams. Hopefully, they do not have to face the Packers.
Yeah. So the
But
last time the Dallas Cowboys had a solid defensive tackle goes back to Jason Hatcher and Jay Ratliff. So
yeah, I
those boys were playing in '08 through like 2011. So it's been a long time since we had those guys. And that was back when it was Jay Ratliff, Jason Hatcher, Marcus Spears, who's now on ESPN, and then DeMarcus Ware. So
speaking of those
quite a
three,
crew.
yeah, the Cowboys had 3 rookies total at least half a sack versus Carolina. Parsons had a sack, Golston had half a sack, and Osa had half a sack. And the last time the Cowboys had 3 rookies record a sack stat in the same game was at Oakland in 2005, where DeMarcus Ware got a sack. Chris Canty, what a name! I remember
Yeah, I
playing
remember
Madden
him.
with that guy. Yeah, it was a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Half a sack, and Jay Ratliff with half a sack. So it also shows that these guys were 3rd round picks and 4th round picks, not top tier blue chip prospects. And it's Golston, he didn't really play all that much in the offseason because he was hurt, and he just came onto the field and has been playing really well. So it's been a thing of beauty.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
good.
very excited to see those Kelvin Joseph whenever he gets back. He's
Oh
probably
yes,
still, recording in Cabo. Like, who knows what he's doing? But see him get on the field a little bit. Nashawn Wright got on the field. He didn't have that great of a showing after Trayvon Diggs went out, because that's when the Panthers scored those 2 touchdowns at the end. But I'd like to see him on the field more. But yeah, the rookies. This has been a great year for rookies on the Cowboys. And Terrence Steele, another round of applause for you. For you had some highlight plays during the game of pancaking some defensive linemen, opening up some holes, protecting well, and congratulations to you for improving. I think the one weakness of the Dallas Cowboys on offense is they aren't as good at pass protection as they have been in the past. So they have a great run blocking. They're great at run blocking, but it seems like whenever they pass block, they're not as sound as they used to be. That I could probably just say that's just because Tyron Smith and Zach Martin, they're older, and then Biotish is not turned out to be that great of a center.
I think it's
And
definitely Biotish.
I mean, he's
It,
just
it,
getting destroyed up the middle, but
it,
they're a little bit weaker there. So, I mean, I guess the way to beat the Cowboys, I guess, is to get them in the 2nd and longs and 3rd and long, because they can't really pass protect as well. But other than
it's
that,
hard.
they really don't have a weakness on offense.
It's hard for a guy who didn't even play, hasn't even played a full 16 games, to go up against one of the best nose tackles and then keep on getting great nose tackles. And he hasn't looked great, but he's only going to get better. And I'm sure everyone's heard of this. You're only as good as your weakest link, and the weakest link now is Biotish. It's no longer Connor Williams. So congratulations, Connor Williams. You are no longer the worst offensive lineman on the Dallas Cowboys.
And
So
well, I mean, Terrence Steele as well. Congratulations to you.
Congratulations, Terrence Steele,
offensive lineman on the Dallas
So-
Cowboys.
I think it's difficult because for Dak, if when he had Travis Frederick, he didn't have to worry about getting sacked up the middle. But now that we have Biotish, like it's the pocket is closing in a way, and then if he goes to his left, that's great. But if he goes to his right, like I wouldn't trust Steele to be able to engage for a few more seconds to let Dak go to the right. So, but it's just Dak will get better. Biotish, I don't know. But one of the things I really like about this Cowboys team is that they use Connor McGovern as a fullback. That's great to see him out there just killing linebackers, it makes my heart very happy.
Yeah, I remember in Madden, I was playing one of my buddies one time, and I got in a HP. I think it was a it was a Texas route, and that's one of my favorite routes in the game. By the way, is the running back doing an angle route and catching it up the middle. But I get into the play. I ended up being the Cowboys because I random to the Cowboys, and I was forced to be the Cowboys. I don't necessarily like to play with the Cowboys on Madden, but I end up as the Cowboys, and Connor McGovern is the person on doing the angle route. I'm like, what is this? Why is he my fullback? This should be going to Zeke. But
He can
yeah,
do all
but
things.
yeah,
He can
that's
do
just
all things.
just kind of a joke. But yeah, I think he's a great asset when you're running to run that fullback dive, which is completely OP in the game. Shout out to my buddy Bryson, who always uses that on me and really short 4th and 1s, and then also on the goal line. It's pretty much impossible to stop. So shout out to you on that. Please stop running fullback dive. But yeah, Connor McGovern, they can basically plug him in at center, right
Plug him
guard, left guard,
anywhere.
wherever. He's kind of that asset that they can move around, which is really nice to have for the offensive line, especially. But I
I'm
mean,
sad that
really,
they didn't trade him because I think some teams wanted him and they did not. Thankfully, they did not trade him away because this team would not be this. The guards, Dallas is really deep at guard. Center, they're okay at, and tackle isn't. It's a very bad depth. But talking, you said before about Kelvin, I saw a post a few days ago. He's doing charity work, and I think he's also rehabbing. So good for him. And Lyle Collins is in the building, and he is getting ready. He has 2 more games left on his 5-game suspension for bribery. So good for you, Lyle. You're back and be back in 2 weeks. Glad I'm really happy to see you. I know for a fact that man is going to step in, that he's going to get into his practice uniform, and he's going to be so out of shape. He's not going to play for the next 3 to 4 weeks. He will be out for the next month.
who
That man
Collins?
never, yeah, he is never in shape. Because even last year, like 2 off seasons ago, the off season before Dak got injured, he was in a car crash. Came to camp, was obviously the car crash is going to mess you up, but he was not in any type of physical form to play football. So he has a lot more issues than people talk about. But
Yeah, well,
I
I mean,
hope
I,
he
I
comes
feel
in.
like I feel like if he wants to keep his job, like he should be at least in ready to play in at least a game after he comes back from his suspension. Because I feel
He's
like if he
already been
shows up,
paid.
if he shows up out of shape, I don't think he's gonna. I don't know how much his contract hurts our cap space, but I feel
It
like
wasn't that big of a
if
contract,
Terrence
I don't think.
Steele shows that he's competent and they want to move forward with Terrence Steele and not Lyle Collins, they could easily just boot him if he just shows up out of shape. So I guess it's one of those things also that I was mentioning about like DeMarcus Lawrence. Obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence is a really valuable asset for the football team, but with pretty much everyone on the defensive line contributing, it's not like we were talking about when he got hurt, like, oh, this is going to be a huge loss. We're not going to be able to generate pass rusher. We're going to get killed and run the football over us, blah, blah, blah. And really, that hasn't happened with him not being on the field. So it's just showing that these veterans, they're really getting pushed by those rookies, like I talked about and Owen talked about earlier in earlier episodes about those veterans. They're not getting to be complacent like they used to be with with the Jason Garrett quarterback, with the Jason Garrett Cowboys, and then the Mike McCarthy Cowboys last year. I mean, that really didn't count. Dak wasn't there, but just the veterans just knowing, oh, my job is safe because there's really nobody to take it from me. So
Yeah.
I think that's just great to see, especially with all those rookies playing really well.
Yeah, and Donovan, hopefully he can play this week with his groin, but when he comes back, he's gonna have to outperform Curse and outperform Casey for a starting position. So hopefully he can come back healthy and show the flashes that he showed last year. But I don't know how much Ray wanted to talk left, and if he had any more points. But Dallas, they're the 4th ranked total offense, 14th ranked passing offense, 2nd ranked rushing offense, and 4th ranked points per game.
That's exactly what I envisioned to being a winning formula. With their talent on offense, passing, the fact that they're only 14th just shows that they've really emphasized getting the running game going, and they can easily just turn that on whenever they need to. Because I know they were, I think, first or second or third passing offense last year, and then the year before, 2018, when they were generating all those huge passing yard games. So it's really nice to see. I'm sure the defense is top 10 and definitely number one in
Yeah,
takeaways, and then top 10 scoring.
yeah,
Maybe
they're
not
top
scoring
10.
defense, but they're definitely around top 10 total
Mm,
defense.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I love that they're able to run the ball so effectively because if they when they played Philly just had two deep safeties and they were like, yeah, run the ball, and they didn't show that they wanted to stop the run. And if you don't want to stop the run, then okay, here's Tony Pollard and Zeke. But if you do want to fill up the box, then you can go deal with Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson and Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb. So there's really not, like you said before, there's not one correct answer to beat the Cowboys. It's just a bunch of stuff has to go your way to be able to beat them or to be able to slow down their offense.
But yeah, um, Cowboys, they're taking on the Giants next week. Another shout out to my buddy David. He's a Giants fan. He was pretty upset that the Giants actually won last week because he wants them to not win and get the first overall pick so they can replace their quarterback. So I think I don't know how many Giants fans share his same opinion. I'm sure almost 40 to 50% probably think that probably want a new quarterback. So if that's the case, then Dallas would be doing Giants fans a lot of service of beating them. So I think we're going to have a lot more Giants fans on our side this upcoming week than usual. Also, Eli Manning and Peyton were unfortunately not doing Monday Night Football yesterday. It made it a lot harder to watch because I really liked that broadcasting format. Also, shout out to Eli Manning for once again stopping an undefeated season and being Tom Brady's father in a sense, taking him out in 2 Super Bowls, being a better quarterback twice. Thank you for your services. Follow him on Twitter. He's a very funny human being. So, just to get that out of the way, I really didn't find a perfect spot to do that earlier, but I just got to throw that in there before we ended up the show. So, I really don't have a lot much to say other than I'm happy that the Cowboys are 3-1 because it makes the fall a lot more exciting when your football team is doing well.
Can I ask, can we do one more thing and then we can go?
Sure, sure.
I want to go through I'm content in my schedule answers a few weeks ago, but given off how the Cowboys have performed so far, I want to see if you have any changes on how some scores may break. If you're okay with it. So I'm gonna say the games and you're gonna say if you think it's gonna be a win or a loss based
Okay,
off how the Cowboys are
okay,
playing right now.
okay.
Okay, next week the Giants.
Win.
Okay, Patriots.
I'm gonna still. Where is that being played? Foxborough, right?
It's in Foxborough.
I'm gonna still say
Foxborough.
loss just because it's
Okay.
in Foxborough.
Okay. Vikings,
Win,
Broncos,
win,
Falcons,
win,
Chiefs,
loss,
Raiders,
win,
Saints,
win,
Washington,
loss,
Giants,
loss, or win. Sorry,
Washington,
win,
Cardinals,
loss,
Eagles.
win.
Okay, you, my friend, have the Cowboys going 13-5. Is that how it works these days?
12 and 5.
12 and 5. 12 and 5.
12
Yeah.
and 5. Solid. Good job, Cowboys. I don't know if that will be good enough to win the first place.
I don't want
but
first
it
place.
would definitely be enough to win the division.
I just want a division. I don't want to have to go through seeing them not know how to play football for the first half of the game.
Yeah, that
They need to play as many games as they can.
I agree. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today. Thanks everyone for watching this episode, whether it be on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, or if you tune in a little bit later on YouTube. You can find us at All About America's Team on Instagram, and then America's Team, capital P, capital C on Twitter. I did some tweeting during the game last week and then also during the Patriots game. So I'm fairly active. I may or may not tweet against for the Yankees and Boston game because I know Owen is a Yankees fan and our producer Nick is also a big time Yankees fan. So if the Yankees lose, it's going to be a very hilarious night for me. That's for sure.
You're gonna have to
But
tweet because I'm gonna be at work while this game's going on. So I'm gonna have to see what's going on through your tweets.
yeah. Yeah, I'm usually don't watch a bunch of baseball just because my favorite team doesn't really get a lot of live coverage. But during the playoffs, I'm a lot more active in watching baseball. I think playoff baseball is a lot more entertaining than regular season baseball, obviously.
Oh,
But
100%.
but throwing that aside, we'll be back in a couple of days to talk about the Cowboys game versus the Giants. Danny Dimes versus Dak Prescott, Zeke versus Saquon. Both of the running backs are healthy. Division games are always challenging, so we'll get in a little bit into that later. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys. Have a good rest of your day, y'all.